Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Scint.
I'm Axion.
And we are continuing our playthrough of Pokemon Christmas and our discussion of A Christmas Carol. We have at this point pretty thoroughly gone over just the basic elements of the plot, as well as taking a little bit of a deeper look into each specific section of the story, particular emphasis given to how each of the ghosts relates to Scrooge's character development, and just how we can read more into his characterization from that. However, as with any sort of story, and as we did before with Pygmalion, there's a lot more to a story than just the actual plot. There's a lot of outside influences that can help shape things, and hello, Team Rocket. It's actually kind of fitting we were into Team Rocket today, because the topic we wanted to look at next has to do with the idea of a redemption arc.
So, as anyone who has grown up in the past 50 years in America is familiar with, the entirety of Christmas Carol is a redemption story. It is the story of Scrooge, a terrible person by any metric, becoming a proper and decent person and functioning member of society. Oh, for bad dog.
I'm naming the Houndour Katy Perry.
You already made that joke.
Yeah, and the radio keeps playing it, so you know. You don't really get to play that card on the radio of, oh, sorry, you already used that. You can't play it again today. I have heard the same song like 4 times in one day.
You have opinions on this.
I'm just stating the fact that it has happened. Anyway, but yeah, redemption arcs. I will be the first to admit that, why are you using ice on a fire type?
Because I'm annoyed at and don't feel like switching again.
Have you tried being more chill?
You were saying!
Hey, I'm saying it was super effective.
Get on with it.
I'm saying that I am a sucker for a good redemption story. There are a lot of really good stories out there that focus around somebody getting a second chance and doing everything they can to make good on it. And I kind of find Scrooge's case interesting because he doesn't come to it in the same way that many do.
Such as?
Like, well, in many cases, a redemption arc is kickstarted with an act of kindness. Somebody does something to make this person reconsider their worldview, usually in that the world is a cruel place, survival of the fittest only, and I must look out for number one. And then somebody is kind to them, and it kind of gives them that impetus to change their ways, because maybe the world isn't such a cruel and unforgiving place as I once thought.
Which, while it is a nice sentiment, is not particularly realistic.
It really depends. In some cases, it can be. Like, sometimes if, like, I'm gonna have to go to one of my favorite stories ever for this. Les Miserables. Jean Valjean, is in the position he's in because he fell on hard times. He's imprisoned for stealing a loaf of bread to feed his nieces and nephews, and basically his life is ruined because of this stint in jail, and he basically gives up on being a good person for a while because, well, he's marked as a felon, so no one's willing to give him a chance. But because the bishop shows him kindness and forgiveness, it gives him what he needs to realize, I can make a fresh start of this, I can make good on this, and it basically starts off the whole story, which really explores his quest to become a truly good person and make good on this new chance he's been given.
Right.
And I don't think that's completely unique. Wheezing is, perfect.
Yeah, I was worried it was gonna explode.
I mean, everybody's got a temper.
Anyway.
But Scrooge did not have that. Scrooge was not given a chance of kindness that pushed him over the edge to change his ways. Like, he was actively annoyed at the act of kindness offered to him, with Freddie inviting him to spend time with him for Christmas and be part of the family. So Scrooge kind of runs counter to, like, what most people, I think, would think of the redemption story. Because I think a lot of people look at that in terms of, like, you know, someone has hit their lowest point, and at the right moment they are shown kindness and a good example of being a good person, and that makes them want to change for the better.
Right.
Scrooge kind of had the exact opposite. Scrooge did not want to change his ways until he was told, dude, you are going to hell if you don't fix it. Trust me, I just came from there.
Which, I wonder what it says, that hell, quote-unquote, is basically the real world, or the physical mortal world, that we live in from day to day, but you are invisible, incorporeal, and unable to interact with anybody.
So you're saying hell is loss of agency?
That is kind of the way it is, yeah. In the afterlife of Dickens, for lack of a better word, the afterlife, his idea of hell is being among people, but being unable to interact with them, and being unable to do anything, and knowing you did this to yourself, like we said in the prior video.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that's an angle that gets looked at in a lot of respects when different pieces of media depict the afterlife. It's usually going to be hellfire and brimstone, or like just this frigid, unfeeling place, or just trapped in like something that is personalized to you, a hell of your own making, where your own desires and vices work against you. But like, I don't think it's just the idea of, no, the true hell is you are exactly as you were, exactly where you were, forever, powerless to change anything, forever irrelevant. And I think that is a more existentially resonant fear with a lot of readers than most would expect. Because, like, everybody wants to have some degree of power over their situation, regardless of what that eventually turns out to be. Like, it could be, do I want to escape the situation? Do I just want to be able to improve it? Do I just want to know that I'm able to affect something regarding my own actions? And if you are a ghost in Marley's position, and what Scrooge could have been if Marley hadn't warned him, I think that would be a purer form of hell for many people than the traditional hellfire, brimstone, poke with a pitchfork.
Yeah. It's definitely more of a psychological torment than physical or spiritual.
I think a psychological torment would be pretty spiritual, because I think a lot of people equate the soul with the sense of self.
I mean,
so, yeah, it's anything psychological is going to be, in a sense, spiritual in terms of punishment, because it's going after your essence. Like, the essence of what is you, what would go cut to your core in terms of torment. And it's probably telling, mostly of, like, Scrooge's situation and Marley's situation, that we only really get a glimpse of the spurned afterlife, of what would essentially amount to hell and eternal punishment. We do not get any sort of glimpse of, well, heaven, of paradise. Why would you deposit the XP share? You could absolutely stack it on somebody else and make this go faster.
Because it wouldn't go faster?
It would feel faster.
But it wouldn't be true.
Have you ever driven 3 miles out of your way to avoid a stoplight?
Yes.
That's what doing with the XP share is.
Anyway. So, rather than have the kind action that drives him to reconsider his position and start becoming a better person for the sake of basically echoing what good thing has been done for him, Scrooge is more... Basically, this is Marley doing a good thing for Scrooge, and Scrooge resenting it the whole way until he eventually learns from the lesson he's supposed to learn.
Yeah, which he does through basically being dragged through the mud, utterly shamed, reduced to his absolute lowest point, and terrified into compliance. A Christmas Carol is basically a chick tract.
That is the worst thing I've ever heard.
Can you refute it?
No, and that's part of what makes it terrible.
I think Muck approves of it. He's grinning. Or is that a grimace?
You know what, I'm not even sure at this point.
But yeah, Scrooge is effectively confronted with everything he's ever done wrong in his life. Look at all the ways that people talk about him now, and then here's what could happen if you don't change your ways. And you might almost expect it to be completely exaggerated, just given how extreme people's reactions to Scrooge's death seem to be, and the utter lack of acknowledgement of Freddy's response, which could just be an issue of timing, as we've mentioned before, but it does seem deliberately calculated to make Scrooge have a very specific reaction to his circumstances and a very specific form of redemption, to always keep Christmas in his heart all the year long.
Which, in practice, more means, you know, be a generous, good person and treat people with respect and reverence and with honor for, basically for being who they are, for being human people with souls and lives and deserving of respect.
Yeah, I think it's rather telling that, like, Scrooge's lesson of "I will be a nice person" is phrased as to keep Christmas all year round. It's like, can you not be nice to someone without thinking of Christmas? This is Calvin writes a letter to Santa levels of redemption, if you really want to get into it that far. But Scrooge does genuinely become a better person. He averts the Ghost of Christmas Future's vision, saves Tiny Tim, and, well, things get better for him. We don't get into absolute specifics, but he manages to avoid the afterlife as presented to him. This thing just does not want to go down, does he?
I mean, it's wheezing, it's tanky.
Yeah, and I do question the wisdom of, like, this thing is exuding poison gas with every breath. I'm a chomp it.
I'm a ghost.
Valid. But yeah, like, it's... I'm trying to think offhand of other redemption stories that start the same way Scrooge's did, with an implicit threat, rather than an overture of kindness.
Not many I can think of. Well, not
okay,
any I can think of.
Actually, I can think of some. Mostly Nanoha, but that's just because in Nanoha she makes friends by beating up the enemies.
You know what, that's valid.
And that could mostly just be the memes talking. It's been a while, but we can go with that. But yeah, it's one of those situations of, like, if we want to delve into TV tropes here of, you know, defeat means friendship, redemption equals death, redemption is caused by death, etc., etc., etc. And Scrooge kind of falls into a really weird space on that, because death does motivate him. The fear of a hypothetical death of not just him, but Tiny Tim, but it's still a case of, like, I literally would not have changed my ways if I hadn't seen all of these things. And also, you know, it's kind of an inversion of that, because he redeems himself to save his life. He doesn't die, whereas in many cases with that particular cliche that, yes, I have changed my ways, but it's too little too late, and you are no longer for this world. There's a lot of different terrain changes on this island.
Yeah.
So do we actually know what Team Rocket's plan is?
Not yet.
Do they not realize it would be far less suspicious to let us walk by and then, you know, like, pin us in when we can't escape to go heal?
It's Team Rocket, they don't think that far ahead.
I mean, at least it's not Team Magma. I'm gonna go throw rocket fuel into a volcano. Nothing can go wrong with this plan.
Stop poisoning me! It's the third time.
I don't know, he seems shocked by it. Look at it.
Look me back in the kill.
Of course you're gonna bring that up. But, yeah, it's just interesting, because, like, yeah, outside of, like, a few specific niche genres, I can't think of another example of being scared into being a good person and having it actually stick. Like, I can kind of see a lot of characters, like, initially being scared onto the straight and narrow, and then once the initial fear wears off, it doesn't really have as much of a hold, but it absolutely does for Scrooge, and maybe it's just because he's an old man who's going to die soon.
I mean, that might well be enough.
I mean, yeah, the only person he had actually called a friend died 7 years ago, so he knows, yeah, he's at the age that he could kick the bucket any moment. And, well, maybe that's all the motivation he needed, is just, hey, what's your legacy going to be? How do you think people are going to remember? Oop, there you go.
Ah, how did that not miss?
You see, if you'd had the XP share on...
I hit him with 3 mud slaps. How did that not miss?
See, here's the thing about wide-scale explosions. You're not going to be able to improved evasion your way out of a mushroom cloud. I always wonder how that works.
Don't think about it too much.
Oh, I'm going to think about it too much. What do you think the focus of this channel is? Not overthinking things?
Fair point.
But yeah, think of like other redemption arcs where you get kindness as the impetus for changing your ways. Actually, the new She-Ra is kind of a good example of that with Catra.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she has to basically be reduced to her lowest point, but the fact that the hero characters are still willing to give her a chance to prove herself and have her, you know, make good on things is enough for her to eventually, after several rocky starts, change her ways and become one of the heroes.
Right.
Spoilers. But yeah, it's just interesting because, like, I do think that there is a lot of power in the story of redemption, because people don't want to believe that anyone is beyond hope. We like to think that humanity is inherently good, and that by default means we should believe in the potential of redemption. We should be able to believe that any character sufficiently motivated can become a good person, can be better than they are, can be a force for good in the world, or at least not an active source of problem. I just wonder how realistic that is in a lot of stories, because there are also characters that, like, start off trying to make better on themselves, to become better for their people, to become more useful in the setting, to become a source of help, not hindrance, and they don't get that chance.
And to some degree, there's the question of how realistic is it in a real-world application. Like, as iconic as the story of A Christmas Carol has become, how many people nowadays that you can think of who would be in Scrooge's position would respond in the same way in the modern era?
I mean, in the modern era, we'd see tweets about it immediately, and everybody would make fun of them.
Exactly. That's kind of my point, is...
Hey, I had this really weird dream, a ghost showing me my past. It was really awkward.
There's nothing here. Yeah, they dismiss it as just a nothing.
Which Scrooge initially tried to do. I think it also is a case where the thorough saturation of pop culture with A Christmas Carol would actually work against it. People would immediately recognize it, and the story has been very widely parodied. So it's become such a common story that a lot of people don't even take it as seriously as the story initially merited. It's kind of become a joke in and of itself in some regards. So yeah, if this happened to an actual person today, they'd go, "Oh, this is some Christmas Carol stuff," and well, I can see where this is going. Yes, I know, better person, etc., etc. I know exactly what the ghost want me to say. So I think to some extent the story would sabotage itself just through virtue of having already existed in a place where people would have a very hard time not having heard of the story.
Which is really funny to say now that it's become such a thing, because when it was first originally released, it was really influential on culture in exactly that way. Oh dear, I need to not be on this. Like, when Christmas Carol first came out, when Dickens first released it...
You may want to swap again.
Yeah. I do not like Wobba Fett.
You prefer Jango Fett?
That was terrible, and you know it.
Yes, I do.
But, like...
I mean, I would have gone for the Shadow Ball there because your Ghost typing would have gotten the whole stab boost. So that would have basically had the same result.
To dodge that since I'm Ghost type. Oh. You troll!
They're being awfully catty.
I didn't even know the rockets.
Come on, Meowth. Use Payday. Yeah, any AI trainer can do it. They just almost never do.
Anyway, we really got distracted by this thing in Wobba Fett.
I mean, it's like video games are meant to engage the senses or something.
Anyway, so... when Christmas Carol first came out, it was massively influential on society at the time. It actively affected people and caused people to literally, like, change their behavior and reconsider their positions on things and all that sort of thing, and in a way that many stories, just you would never expect to happen in, like, in the modern era. You would never expect to hear a serious report of something like Christmas Carol really causing someone to change their behavior in any meaningful way nowadays, but it literally did back when Dickens first released it in a way that I can't think of any other story that has ever done so.
Well, I mean, The Jungle had a pretty big impact. That's how we got the FDA.
Well, yes, but that was also notable for completely missing the actual original point that the author was intending to portray.
While true, I am very glad they have done something about, you know, not having as many stray elements in purchasable meat as there were before The Jungle was published.
Oh no, I agree. I agree 100%. But it's... I honestly don't really have an answer for what really differentiates then and now in this regard.
Exposure. I think that's all it is. It's the whole idea of no one thinks Seinfeld is funny because all the jokes it has have been done in so many other things that people are more immediately familiar with as to being more modern things. Though at the time it came out, it was very influential, very well received, etc., etc., etc. And I think that's the issue with A Christmas Carol. It has been so widely consumed, so widely repeated, so widely subsumed into popular culture that it no longer has that same impact beyond just, oh, this is a holiday touchstone that we go to for the sake of comfort and routine and nostalgia. It doesn't have the same impact because it's already had that impact. It influenced so many other stories that have also in turn become like It's a Wonderful Life. Any other redemption story centered around this sort of thing. It's been so often retold, it's lost its power through sheer repetition.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it's not a good story. It doesn't mean it's not worth reading, it's not worth revisiting. It's still worth it.
No. Most certainly, there's a reason it's such a beloved classic. There's a reason we watch a version of it every Christmas, if not multiple.
And my immediate thought is, because it's really short, and I just wanted to put that Tiny Toons bit in with Daffy just going, "It's short!" and just crying with relief. I do wonder if that's one reason it was so popular, considering some of the doorstops Dickens is also famous for, this has got to be a huge change of pace.
I mean, we can't knock it, but we also can't prove it.
Not without a time machine.
I guess that's fair.
So yeah, what else do you have to say with regards to a redemption story as told in A Christmas Carol?
Not a whole lot. I think we really summed up the situation as it is, to our knowledge, with basically this is kind of, in one sense, it's archetypical, because it's so, like you said, so ingrained in our culture. But on the other hand, it's so very different from how most such redemption stories are portrayed.
I mean, I think that's true of almost anything that has been around this long and has been adapted so many times. Things are going to get lost in adaptation, things are going to be introduced or removed, and it makes it very different to the version you tend to see. Like, fairy tales come to mind. Like, I'm going to go with my favorite Disney movie, all hail, Beauty and the Beast. The initial Beauty and the Beast tale, she has her sisters, who are basically there just to serve as counterparts for how good a person Beauty is. In the animated movie, the good version that Disney put out, there isn't such a character, except for a few of the villagers who just happen to exist in the background, because they're not seen as super crucial to the plot compared to Beauty's relationship with Beast, and both of them growing to love each other. So things get adapted out.
And I think that is the siren call of Puppy wanting attention, so this looks like a good spot to leave it both in the course of our discussion and in the course of the game, because it looks like Jasmine needs some help. So we will see you all next time on Crit and Crit.
Bye!